the end of the day, I think being present with your kids, like my parents did a great job of this. I will never forget my mom missed my senior year of high school. I had a baseball game,
Uh-huh.
and that was the first game she ever missed,
Oh,
and she
wow.
cried.
Wow.
And that was like meaningful to me because it meant that much that they were there. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so, and she made sure my grandpa was there. So like there was someone in my family that was there.
Oh.
But that became a core part for me
Hmm.
to like when I had the opportunity to go remote, like I reserve, 3:30, 4 o'clock to like 7 o'clock. That's like family time. I want to be present with him,
Yeah.
go outside, play with him, interact, play. And sometimes I am just beat at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's not to say sometimes we do just sit on the
Yeah.
couch and we just
Yeah.
veg.
Yeah.
But that presence, right, of being able to, hey, I think later this year they're gonna go on a trip with me, which I used to go on trips with my dad on business trips. But that like I want him to feel that I'm there.
Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best. Cam Lawson in the studio today, buddy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good, man. Thank you for having me. It's
Yes,
been a long time.
Cam, we have gone back many years, high school days. In
Yes.
fact, I can recall you being
Oh yeah.
the star goalie.
Ah, okay. No,
Um,
that's great.
so I think this is high school. But anyway, thanks so much for joining the Investment Fathers today. So I know that you've had sort of a fun, similar in a way, journey with some previous jobs. I did landscaping. You've done landscaping. In fact, we were joking. I don't know if it'll reach the daylight on what we were saying, but some fun stories about just doing tree work and stuff. Uh, are you have you do you still enjoy landscaping? What's the status there?
Yeah, no, it's I do.
Okay.
And it's every once in a while I envy somebody just sitting on a mower with their headphones in, just
Yes.
making grass look awesome and then being able to turn right around and see the work that
Yes.
was done.
Yes. Yes.
And so
Sitting riding lawnmower, right?
yes,
The one
that's
you
right,
got you
absolutely.
got the music.
Forget a push mower on the side of a mountain. So
Yes.
I was telling you before we were walking in, I was up at the cliffs and we used to work up there, did a lot of work in a high-end residential. And it was funny as I was going in, I was telling the guy that I was eating with a story where we were working. And I remember it was a semi truck of mulch that came in. And I will never forget that. Watching that semi truck go up and just the mulch like just kept falling down. And it was like, please be done. And then it pulled off and it was just this mountain of mulch. And that was the moment when I realized maybe landscaping is not for me. But it's every once in a while I do. I tinker around the
Yeah,
house,
man.
make it look good.
Yeah.
But
We're gonna get into expert subject matter of what you've recently completed in your to get your PhD. Is that right?
yeah,
And that's going to be about social media, Facebook, comment section specific. So listeners will definitely enjoy that because actually, I don't think I've had an expert subject matter
really.
on the show yet. So this is great.
Oh man,
You're number one, man.
I don't know about that.
So that's exciting. So I know you put a lot of time into that. Before we go there, give us the high level career journey.
Yeah.
Sort of, and we know the landscaping, but
Yep.
what's been the last couple jobs or job and where are we at today?
Yeah. So landscaping kind of goes a little bit into it. So right out of college, I actually worked alongside Kenny. And so we did landscaping, and then I had moved up to Nashville, Tennessee.
Hmm.
And so did a little bit of the music thing. I just needed to get out of Greenville.
Hmm.
Was born and raised here. I needed to spread my wings and fly.
Yes.
And up there, it was great, super fun. Glad I did that. Made some really dumb decisions, and flew right on back to Greenville and came into a structured environment, which was good for me. But during that time, started working in actually nonprofit. So worked for a nonprofit called Miracle Hill.
Hmm.
I was in therapy at the time actually, and was working at Miracle Hill. Really cool moment in my life,
Yeah.
much needed, and don't make a ton of money in nonprofit. And so had two jobs. So I was also working at the Y.
Oh,
And during that time, a couple of the leaders took me under their wing and said, "Hey, you've got some potential." And I went through college thinking I wanted to be a pastor. I
yeah.
was dead set on that, ready to go.
Yeah.
I think even at the time that we were working together, I think I was getting my MDiv.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so then throughout that, I had somebody challenge me. They're like, "Hey, you can still have an impact in people's lives, not necessarily being in a pastoral ministry."
Hmm.
He said, "In fact, you'll probably have more of an impact because oftentimes you'll get the best of people in the church." He said, "You're going to be able to meet people where you're at in the business world."
Hmm.
Mental shift for me.
Yeah.
That did not happen
Wow.
overnight. It was a lot of, you know, just, am I leaving my calling kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
And so, but felt, hey, if there's something here, what does this look like? And so the CEO of the YMCA of Greenville said, "Hey, you should get an MBA." All right, cool. Let me do that. And so then ended up transitioning off. They kind of made some positional cuts. And so ended up transitioning off the Y and needed a job. So I knew a guy that I worked for church. I was like, I'd done landscaping before. And so that's how I ended up getting to the another landscape company
Okay.
and started out as just a crew guy,
Yeah.
just needed to pay the bills. I was like, this is a summer thing. That's it. I'm
Yep.
doing it. And
Yep.
then worked my way all the way up 5 years later, all the way up to the senior leadership team, head of marketing.
Okay.
And so during that time, we implemented EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's just a framework for how to do business.
Yes.
We hired a coach that came in. He came in, we did that, and he introduced us to a platform called 90.
Okay.
And so went through that whole implementation in 2 years, started to realize finally, after looking at the mountain of mulch many times, I was like, I don't know if landscape is a long-term plan for me.
Got it.
And so transitioned off, worked for an agency for a little while,
Hmm.
and then ended up having to transition off. They just made a cuts, a lot of reduction in force for the agency, and ended up needing another job.
Hmm.
And so I had been a fan of 90, the tool that we had used
Yeah.
for a long time. And so I just happened to reach out to the CEO on LinkedIn and just said, "Hey, I have been an evangelist for you. I've brought it to many companies.
Yes.
Would love an opportunity to work here." And he said, "This is awesome. Here's who you need to talk to." And they hired me.
Wow.
So
When
that's
was
how I got
that?
to 90. So that was, let's see, would have been late 2022, early
Okay.
2023.
Cool.
So
You've been there ever since.
yeah.
Okay.
So
And
making
what's
it
your
happen.
role in 90 right now?
So I work in strategic partnerships.
Okay.
So we have our end consumers, which are typically small businesses, typically CEOs, leadership teams, and then additional teams as they go down and roll out to the rest of the organization. But
Yeah.
that's kind of our primary audience. And then we also have a channel, which are business coaches. So
Okay.
business coaches that come in and work with leadership teams on how to implement a specific system.
Yes.
I work in building that
Okay.
channel.
Okay,
So
dude. That's great.
yeah.
Now, shifting to the family life.
Yeah.
Wife, kids, what's the status there?
Yeah, so got a wife. Awesome. Her
Okay.
name's Olivia. She's a teacher,
Okay.
teaches first grade.
Okay.
Do not know how she does that all day.
Okay. God
And
bless
then
all the teachers
yes,
out there.
that's right. They should
Thank you,
get more money.
teachers.
So no. And then we also have a 4-year-old.
Okay.
So he just turned 4
Okay.
the day of this recording. It was last week. So
Okay. Awesome,
yeah,
man. Dude, we got a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and the fours.
full
Are you
house.
sleeping yet? Is it
Yes.
okay? That's the
So
win.
yeah, absolutely. He has been an awesome sleeper. But it is my mom always jokes with me. She said, "You were 12 hours on, 12 hours off." And those 12 hours on were
We're
on.
very
And I
on.
was like,
Got it.
I understand that now.
I have a son.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I want to go into the Facebook stuff
Yeah.
because you didn't really mention that along that career journey. So I know
Yeah.
you were still working on that.
Right.
Give the audience tell us what it is that you studied
Yeah.
and then why that.
Yeah. It's a good question. So the PhD was around 2020. So I was
Okay.
actually still in landscaping at that time. And
Okay.
so my dad has his PhD. And I don't know, you knew me in high school. I was not a star student. So I loved the athletics and just being a goofball.
Yeah.
And so school just it was a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just make sure I was good enough to play, right? And then really, I think once I started, like it was tail end of my college career, started to get a little more serious. I think it was because I started to study things that were specific to my degree, right? It was
Yeah.
like not just gen ed classes. It was like, oh, learning is actually fun when you
Yeah.
learn about
Yeah.
things that you want to learn
Right.
about.
Right.
And so that's what then the MBA did very well in that program. And
Awesome.
then in 2020, I just got this itch. Like I finished the MBA about 2018 or so.
Okay.
And then in 2020 felt this itch to like continue to like just level
Yeah.
myself up
Yeah.
and differentiate myself. And so the only thing left was a PhD. So I was like, yeah, why not?
Okay.
And so the degree is in it's strategic communication. So
Okay.
the long-term plan for me was always to get into like consulting or coaching.
Yeah.
I fell in love with that. And so I
Yeah.
felt that this would help give a little bit of credibility behind
Yeah.
my name because I'm
Yeah.
32.
Yeah.
I'm not getting some gray hairs.
Right. Right.
But I still have life to live, and
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well, maybe I can front load a little bit of academic credibility
Mm-hmm.
to maybe not necessarily speed that along, but just give myself a little bit more of a foundation, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
So that's really what it was in. And then for the PhD, I had to basically decide what I want to focus on. With the sky's the limit on that.
Right.
I mean, you can do
Right.
whatever you want.
Right.
I mean, there's some of the dissertations you read, it's like,
Right.
what
That's a
is
thing.
that even?
Right. So,
And so I like to be relevant. And so I decided to do Facebook and it's
okay.
kind of influenced. So it started with this idea of social media,
Mm.
which I love social media. I kind of grew up with it. I'm that millennial. I
Yeah.
mean, similar age. We grew up with that. Know
Yeah.
enough to where we can remember life before
Yeah.
that, but also grew up with it, which is a really unique position for
Yep.
people our age because it's like a bridge between the ones that knew life before and then the ones that don't know life without,
Right.
which is a unique place for us. And so I think that's probably a little bit of my interest in it.
Mm.
But I've always been fascinated with the role social media plays in society.
Mm.
I think with the last, political elections and a lot of the
Yeah.
just stuff going on in the world, like it just makes for an interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to start understanding, okay, is somehow social media impacting that in
Mm-hmm.
some form or fashion?
Mm-hmm.
Most people would say yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to argue that.
Yeah.
And then I started to get a little bit narrowed down because my dad gave me some wonderful advice that said, hey, you just need to finish your dissertation. You don't need to
Yeah.
solve world problems.
Yeah.
And so then I started to narrow it down. Okay, let's narrow it down to Facebook, one individual platform. Let's talk about the comment sections of how they influence, the experience you have. So
Yes.
when you go through and read a comment section, there's an algorithm that's feeding you information where you might see a certain comment, I may see a different one.
Mm.
So it's a different experience.
Mm.
And so then it starts to go in what's most relevant. And so
Mm-hmm.
that then leads to engagement, which then I started to find, okay, there's probably some correlations into, hey, polarizing,
Mm-hmm.
uncivil, dramatic content, emotional
Mm-hmm.
content.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably ranked pretty high. Therefore, it's putting it at the top, which then just feeds it. So it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I dove into in my research to figure out, okay, is there a there with that? Is it influencing us and how is it influencing us?
Yeah. So the comment section, social media being sort of like very relevant to today's, and I totally agree. The knowledge of what it was like before
Hmm.
and after, it is a unique position.
Yeah.
And as dads, I mean, we're seeing screens right every turn. I mean, I know you got a 4 year old,
Yeah.
but it is a constant. At least in our family, it is a topic of like how many screen time are we having, and also like I don't like it when he sees me on my phone. Like there's a definite sense of like I think I've heard someone jokingly like they're hiding phones behind books, like so that the kids don't even like see like
Yeah.
the parent doing it, or you're kind of hiding it
Yeah.
like when the kid walks in or whatever. So so I definitely think that's a major issue today with a lot of dads is like
Mm-hmm.
how are we doing screens as well as social media.
Yeah.
So what were, I guess, some of the discoveries made from what you found that maybe could be an application? I mean, awareness, I think, is number one of just like, yeah, this obviously, like you mentioned, uncivil, um, just the hate speech and all that stuff that everyone kind of looks at, and if you kind of fall into it, it can be a very slippery slope of like, what are you trying to gain here?
Yeah.
But what were some maybe things that you discovered, number one, and things that we could maybe apply as dads that would help us be better dads?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a great question. I would say one of the key findings were really, everybody thinks like the troll, right? It's the troll. That's just the like the social media
Right, right,
troll,
right, right. Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of truth to that, right? But what I found was there are actually different, call it like versions of that.
Hmm.
So there's ones that are, I call it the passionate partisan. So those that are just like their belief system, their ideology, they're just going to go out of their way to like promote that.
Share
And
that.
you've totally seen that,
Right.
right? Like,
I believe this. I will die on this hill.
and like we're coming out of a presidential election,
Right.
so obviously
Right.
like that's
There's a
just
lot of that.
amplified during that
Yes.
time.
Yes.
But
Yes. Yes. Yes.
so that was one, and then the cynical Joker was another one,
Okay.
which was more. It was interesting. It was a version of like uncivil communication that was very snarky,
Okay.
like very pointed, almost an intellectual level,
Okay.
which is different than just this passionate partisan. It's like this ideology.
Yeah.
It was a lot more like almost just rude, like
Like
very,
undercut little
yeah, like
like
that kind of
jabbing
thing.
on
And
Schmidt.
then the last personality was the agitator, which is your traditional troll. They're just trying to like egg people on,
Okay. Like
But
unabashed,
each
like
one of those is different,
okay.
right? They're like a different type of personality, and we group them all together into just this troll thing.
Okay.
But I think that does us a disservice because you're not going to interact with somebody that's just trying to egg somebody on versus somebody that has an ideological belief that they really hold on to and
Hmm.
they're just acting like very brashly with that. Like, so I think from that standpoint, that was probably my biggest like gift to the academic community, if you will, because now people can have an understanding whether you're a social media manager or really just trying to understand it,
Hmm.
you can see these things. So I think the biggest thing for me that was probably a takeaway
Hmm.
was the awareness, just kind of understanding that this is influencing me. This platform is designed to get me, and it's almost like, the gladiators like going, we want to like see this drama.
Yes.
Like that's what social media is now. Because like I find myself
Yes.
getting sucked into these comment sections. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I know this is
Yeah.
gonna be a good comment
Yeah.
section. You go in and it does not disappoint. And so,
Right.
then you're sitting there for 30 minutes and you're
Right.
reading just the scum of the earth
Right.
going at it.
Right.
It's like, I don't know if that's really healthy. And so I think that's a big thing for me is understanding, okay, if I'm getting looped into this, I want to make sure that I'm in control with my brain, that I understand.
Hmm.
I can look through this, and if I have, what's my motivation for going to this? Am I going to be entertained? Am I
Hmm.
going to whatever I'm trying to find in
Yeah.
there?
Right.
And so I think that's a big thing. And then understanding that it's rewarding that engagement.
Okay.
So
Right.
it's an echo chamber, right? And what it's going to do is it's going to give you viewpoints that you agree with, and then it's going to give you the polar opposite of that,
Okay.
and life is lived in between.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we probably disagree on some things, but we're friends and we get along. We have an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with people that you may not know. And I
Right.
think what it does is it makes us think that we're all crazy and everyone is just this
You're either on
polar
this side
opposite.
or
And
this
it's
side.
like,
Right.
no, that's
Right.
that's I think the worst thing that I've found
Hmm.
just through comment sections, which then I think tends to bleed over into real life.
That's yeah.
And so I think that was probably the biggest thing for me.
Okay, so as dads, the awareness is key. One of the things I was thinking of is, and I'm glad you said it, like you got this, behind the screen, you're kind of safe, you can say whatever you want. But then it does kind of obviously translate to like, okay, now my mindset thinks this person is this way, if it's someone that you go to church with or
Yeah.
something. And now I rather identify them or classify them as a certain
Mhm.
position. And I just see divide happening. And of course, there's probably some attraction happening as well, but I think the divide is much more seen. So, um, I guess advice to dads on
Mm.
this front, any type of application or things that can be said. Number one for ourselves, but also our kids.
I feel like it's a very fine line because especially depending on the age, like formative years, right? Like,
Mm,
but I think there is a level of, and this is the way that I really am trying to lead my family. I don't think I'm perfect at
mm,
this.
mm,
And I mean, it's
sure.
a 4-year-old is different than like when, is 15.
Right.
Like it's just gonna be different.
Right.
But at the same time, my parents did a really good job of allowing me to travel with them and go
Mm,
to other places and see other cultures and understand that there are other ways to do things
mm,
and being able to hold that maybe that's not how we do it as a family, but we can still respect that.
mhm.
And then being able to hold those things in almost a loose way in our heads. It's like, okay, that's different. Doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
And so I think as
Right.
we go and encourage our kids to understand, hey, you can differ with somebody, and then leading with this curiosity, I
Hmm.
think that's lacking in
Yeah.
American culture, but probably the world. But this idea of, hey, you really believe very strongly about that. Tell me more on why you believe that.
Hmm.
That aspect, I think, opens it up because then you start to realize this person went through so many experiences that then have influenced them to believe that. And when you have that understanding, I may still disagree with you,
Sure.
but I have so much more respect for you instead of just writing them off like it's so easy to do in a
Hmm.
Facebook comment section. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. It's so
Hmm.
easy to do that.
Hmm.
But when you're sitting across from somebody and asking them and they're sharing their experiences, it makes a whole lot more sense. And I think that gives you more empathy and curiosity to dig a little bit. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would encourage dads as they lead their family to lead with that curiosity. Because if you open things up, nobody's ever going to get upset at somebody asking a genuine question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you this is really good because by being curious about someone else's beliefs, you're at least allowing yourself to consider that what they're saying is right. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you are like, oh, because I asked, I have to really believe what they're saying, like you said. But how are we ever going to change ever our mindset unless we are at least absorbing and listening to other people. And unless, we feel like we're in a perfect position, which I would hope that no one thinks that way, we're never going to change either. So I
I
like
would
that.
say I mean, I've always thought this, even before I did my dissertation work, but we tend to overestimate the power of these. You go to a conference, you have a conference high, you're super excited, you got an awesome speaker, you're pumped up on something, or you
Right.
go to a rally and people are like, yes, let's go.
Right.
And then it dies off. I think we overestimate the power of that, more group-based things, and we underestimate the power of one-on-one
Hmm.
conversations. I think that is where the true healing of a society comes down to these one-on-one conversations. If more of us lead with curiosity, I think there's something to be said. There's a lot of power in those one-on-one conversations
Yeah.
to change the world. And I fundamentally believe that with my soul. All about go to a rally, believe what you want to believe, get excited about it, but don't neglect the one-on-one conversations.
Yeah. No, I
In
love that.
person too. I feel
Yeah.
like that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, neighbors,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, like you can go to church, but the diner, wherever, restaurants, the waiter, just the interactions that we have such a unique influence um, in those face-to-face conversations, like you're saying, that are outside of the, social media, LinkedIn, whatever communities, that I think are crucial. And especially when our kids are younger, they're watching us,
Mhm.
we are able to model that, what does my son see me doing on the computer? Well, I could be, changing the world with,
Yeah.
all these nice posts and whatever content creations. But when he sees me talking to a neighbor or, the contractor, whatever it is, he's getting so much more, right? So here, that's great.
Yeah.
One of my questions I do like asking is that the idea of like what are most dads missing today? Like what's kind of the problem with that maybe you've seen, but I feel like you're kind of in that you've somewhat already answered it in regards to like that lack of curiosity. Anything you want to go deeper there or add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the curiosity is a huge part. And I mean, that's still something that I'm learning. It's so easy to there's an example. I mean, I had my son home, so I
Mhm.
work from home,
Yeah.
which is we can dive into that if you want, just the pros and cons of that.
Yeah.
But there was one time where I was kind of getting just finishing up something with work, and then I came around the corner and he had put a bunch of stickers on the back of our like love seat. Like I felt that emotion, like, dude, what
What?
were you thinking? And then like he was like so excited to show me because like I saw it in his eyes. It was like
Yes.
his masterpiece.
Yes. Yes.
And in that, like I'm proud of this, and this is not me every day, but like I was able to take that emotion down and then go in and like, oh, dude, that's really cool. Like here, let's like I pivoted and had this like three-ring binder, and I was like, look, let's decorate this. This is where we can kind of put on instead of the couch and like redirect that energy.
Yes.
But I go with it was a curiosity. Like
Yeah.
instead of letting my emotions take over
Right.
and like run with that, like and like push him
Mhm.
down
Mhm.
I mean, he was really proud of like how he designed it and like
Right.
put him together and like
Right.
that would have like stifled his little creativity.
Right.
And so like I'm so glad I had that moment where
Yeah.
it like I pivoted, but I think the other thing is presence. I see that, there's a lot of, especially in the COVID era, I feel like it
Mm.
kind of forced families to be together,
Hmm.
and which hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more of like even the rise of remote and hybrid work. But at
Yes.
the end of the day, I think being present with your kids, like my parents did a great job of this. I will never forget my mom missed my senior year of high school. I had a baseball game,
Uh-huh.
and that was the first game she ever missed,
Oh,
and she
wow.
cried.
Wow.
And that was like meaningful to me because it meant that much that they were there. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
so, and she made sure my grandpa was there. So like there was someone in my family that was there.
Oh.
But that became a core part for me
Hmm.
to like when I had the opportunity to go remote, like I reserve, 3:30, 4 o'clock till like 7 o'clock. That's like family time. Because my wife is a teacher,
Yep.
she gets home. Cooper goes to a daycare right near where so they get home 3:30-ish. And so I want to be present with him,
Yeah.
go outside, play with him, interact, play. And sometimes I am just beat at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's not to say sometimes we do just sit on the couch
Yeah.
and we just
Yeah.
veg.
Yeah.
But that presence, right, of being able to, hey, I think later this year they're gonna go on a trip with me, which I used to go on trips with my dad on business trips. But that like I want him to feel that I'm there,
Yeah.
and that doesn't always necessarily mean undivided attention, because I think there is some like sometimes you do need to take some time for you,
Yes.
but having that dedicated time, like I know 4 to 7, we're going to be out playing, interacting with people,
Yeah.
and that's just a pivotal moment. So I think that's something that I just want to see. I'm not that I think dads nowadays do a great job of that,
Yeah.
and I think some of it comes from the hybrid and remote work,
Yeah.
but that presence is just a big thing for me.
Yeah. I've talked on the show a little bit about what I would call, well, the book, The Intentional Father. I don't
Mm,
know if you've heard of that book. But they have these classifications of dad, and one of them is the involved dad.
yeah.
And the next one up is the intentional dad.
Mm,
So I always consider myself the involved dad before I read this book. I was like, yeah, I'm, making
yeah,
breakfast,
yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
throwing the ball, I'm with my kids. But sort of that like eye-opening moment for me was there's a world where there's like an intention, and you've talked about it in regards to like you're bringing them with you on this
Mm,
family, and um even like reserving that time 4 to 7, like there's
yeah.
intentionality behind this thing, um where we have a plan,
Mm,
we have a direction we're trying to bring them, versus just kind of like, well, which way is the wind blowing today, okay, let's just kind of go there.
right.
So I feel like vested fathers, whatever we're putting in our minds for how to level up
Mm,
business, marriage, whatever. I think there needs to be, my passion is the intentionality to be like the best dad. How are we getting there?
yeah.
And it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just
No.
like, well, I'm a dad because I have a kid. It's like, well, yeah, that's, I guess technically right, but what are you doing as a dad that's leading? So
Mm,
I think that would be my little soapbox of what what I'm
yeah.
passionate about. Tell me, Cam, I feel like this is always sort of like pulling back the curtain, but you only have a one kid. He's 4 years old, but tell me some hardships, if you don't
Mm,
mind, on just like, okay, we had a career sort of pivots along the way.
mhm.
How long you been married now?
Yeah, coming up on 7 years.
Okay, 7 years. And then you've been with this recent company for like 2 years
Yeah.
now. So one of that topic of, I even hate saying the word work-life balance, but like the crossover
Mm,
behind business and fatherhood. What are some things that has been a struggle that either you're still facing today,
mm.
or you've seen some victories happen, that the audience can maybe relate with?
Yeah, man, I would say the balancing the remote work, so and being a dad. So like, I'm getting off a strategic call, and then my commute home is a 30-second walk down the stairs into World War III,
Right.
and I think from a mental shift standpoint, that's so hard,
Mhm.
and so sometimes
Yes.
I've started to like, okay, end that call and just take like 5, to just sit and like just decompress a
Process.
little bit, get out of that
I
like
like it.
boom, boom.
Yes. Like you're like goodbye, and then you're like I gotta go upstairs and help my wife, and I gotta
Right.
get.
Because
It's
there
like
is
just take
that
a second.
motivation to like, you hear him downstairs and
Get to the
it's
next
like
thing.
going nuts and like, oh my gosh, let me get like, just give Olivia a break. And sometimes you do need to prioritize because then if I'm just snapping out of a strategic call, or maybe it went kind of bad,
Yeah.
or and I'm not in the best mood, it's like give myself just a second to like
It's good.
breathe.
It's good.
And so that's been, I would say, an ongoing struggle. I
Hmm.
think I'm starting to be a little more aware of
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
just understanding the value of that and the
Hmm.
importance of that.
Hmm.
And then I think, just the understanding like how to take care of myself personally. It's so easy to like just start checking things out. Like, all right, gotta get the laundry done, gotta get folded,
Hmm.
gotta,
Hmm.
go pick up, and all these things. And then starting to prioritize like my own health,
Yeah.
mental, spiritual, physical, like all of these things.
Hmm.
And so figuring that in from a schedule standpoint of like, okay, works really well. Like Olivia, she has to be into school at 7:15 in the morning.
Hmm.
So she's leaving at like 6:30. She teaches kind
Hmm.
of a little ways away. And so that gives me time in the morning to be able to go to the gym
Hmm.
and, be able to get some exercise or go walk or do something like,
Hmm.
so it's starting to prioritize that a little bit more because it's so easy to get into just letting life. I mean, it's intentionality.
Hmm.
And I think from a
Hmm.
fatherhood standpoint, absolutely. But then I've also started to like, hey, if I'm going to go to the gym, like Sunday afternoon, like Coop and I have started to go swim. Like
Yeah.
he loves that,
Yes.
getting in the pool. So like inviting him in on those things,
Hmm.
but then allowing him to kind of like start to see that modeled a little bit
Hmm.
has been really rewarding. I used to think it was just like, all right, that's my time.
Right.
But then I can start to, on certain occasions, invite him on things, which has been a lot of fun too. So,
Yeah, no, I love this topic. My son has these little physical therapy exercises he has to do,
yeah.
and what I've learned is I would go to the gym, and whether it be a leg day or what, I'd be tired. But then he's like, "Hey, Dad, you want to do this exercise with me?" And it's like the last thing I want to do. It's like I just did my
No,
legs, and you're like doing these
no, no,
lunges and
no.
everything. I'm just like, it's really
I'm
hurting me.
dying.
Like I'm really in pain now. But we're doing it together, and
Mm,
it's now I'm not even doing it for me. I'm just
mm.
like he's seen me, I want him to see me actually like struggle. Like I want him
Yeah.
to see me like push through it. Because I think that's a big thing for us right now is like that delayed gratification versus immediate gratification.
Mm.
And these, video games, whatever, it's all just like ping, ping, ping. But what happens when you're trying to like, get stronger or get
Yeah.
faster? Like it doesn't just happen. You have to get it, over and over. So love that incorporating the kids even at a younger age. And then you said just like schedule, maybe go a little deeper on like the intentionality of bettering our health. Because I had someone on the show, Von Bethel, and he was like, you can't help anyone else until you've really helped yourself. And
Yep.
just sort of like that's forget how he said it, but it was something like that. So so anything else there that you've seen as like a, oh, this is something I've been lacking just from being busy.
Yeah. So yes to that. I mean, you have to prioritize yourself. I mean, it goes a little bit counterintuitive than
Right.
I think some cultural things that maybe from an upbringing standpoint
Right.
or whatever you're taught, it's like others first,
Right. Right.
Um, but there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah.
Like if
No.
I don't take care of my health, I'm gonna
Right.
die. I'm not gonna exist
Right.
anymore. Like
Right.
I can't help anybody at that
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
so being able to go in and prioritize yourself is crucial. And so what I did was actually I need someone to yell at me to like run
Hmm.
or chase a ball
Yeah.
to run. And so hired a trainer, which
Yeah.
was a great investment for
Yes.
me to go in and have somebody like organize something based on my goals and just make
Yes.
me do things.
Yes. Awesome.
I just know myself. Like I'm a
Yes.
very disciplined person
Yeah.
when it comes to business and some things, but like with sports
Yeah.
and like physical stuff, I'm
Right.
not gonna run if I don't have to.
Right. Right. No, I love
Yeah, I
that.
was a goalkeeper. I don't want to run. And then the other thing was I actually hired a growth coach,
Okay.
which was interesting. So, through Stacy, shout out Stacy Geisel. She's awesome. She's local to Greenville, but she's a holistic health and like stress coach.
Yeah.
And so what she's done is she's really helped me kind of just design my life, and that
Cool.
has been so helpful.
Cool, dude.
I had a session with her earlier this morning, and we
Yeah.
just talked through all these different facets of my life, but really just kind of main stressors for me, and just from personal and professional. And that has been by far the best investment I've ever made because
Awesome.
it's helped me. I kind of went into it thinking like it's just gonna like solve some things for me, but like what it's done is made me way more introspective and like started to learn myself and my tendencies. And I think those are the ways that you start to take care of yourself. And you don't have to necessarily go on like hire a personal trainer and like, but having that willingness to dig deep into, all right, what are some weak spots in me? What are some areas that I need to improve on? And then starting to build, I love, again, I work for a company called 90, but I love the power of 90 because there's so much that you can accomplish in 90 days.
Mm.
When you start to build your world around a 90-day world,
Hmm.
you can start to go in and start to accomplish, all right, here are some key things that I want to go after, and here are some,
Yeah.
KPIs,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or tasks that I need to get done in these specific times. Like you can start to build out that way. So I basically follow that path. All right, hey, in this 90-day period, I want to do these three things and I'm going
Hmm.
to execute on that.
Hmm.
And I'm going to start to reverse engineer what needs to happen on a weekly
Hmm.
basis for me to get
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
So it's just like I'm running a business, but I'm running my life. So that's how I've started to kind of think through it that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
I've started that book, The 12-Week Year.
Yeah.
I don't, it's probably very similar to
Yeah.
how you guys train it. Um, and it's a different mindset shift, because
Mhm.
there's like the yearly goals. And just that idea though of how are you getting to an end goal? And 90 is a great number. And dude, how long have you had this trainer or this life coach, kind of growth coach?
Coming up on a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've just seen like since that
Oh,
started, like,
yeah.
wow.
For sure.
Yeah, no, that's great. I
Like,
I
I
love
mean,
that
in
message.
marriage, in fatherhood, in my personal,
Yes.
just individual life, my
Yeah.
professional life,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Cam, thank you so much for your time today. You've dropped
absolutely.
so much good insights. The thing about Vested Fathers, this podcast, my goal is I just want to create a space that dads, it's not a right or wrong. This is what we're doing.
Hmm.
And how can we grow together from it? So, here's some of your struggles and some things you've learned have been very helpful for me. Cam, if people wanted to kind of follow what you're up to, give us a way to track what you're doing. And then any closeout words of wisdom you want to share.
Yeah,
No
man.
pressure though.
No, right. Got the closing word at the end of church, man. No. Yeah, no, I mean, I think if people want to maybe connect, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn.
Okay.
Strategically have limited my social media. Just when you dive into the scum of Facebook, makes you not necessarily want to be on that very much. So that was just a personal decision, just
Yeah.
to like limit and be present with my family, just to limit some things. But I'm on LinkedIn. If people want to get in touch with me via about 90, that's fine. Happy to talk about that. Fatherhood. I mean, whatever. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
So, but you can search Cam Lawson. You should find me. I think my actual URL is like Cam Lawson 90.
Okay. Cool.
So,
Cool.
and then yeah, I mean, as far as a closing word, what comes to mind is the power of this kind of community. I think being a father can be very lonely.
Mhm.
And by nature, men are very competitive. And a lot of times we want to push down because we want to be the best. And that has gotten us probably far in life. But I think there's tremendous value in having these kinds of conversations and having more community. I'm very fortunate to work alongside two other guys who are also dads at
Mhm.
90. We're all kind of the same position. And it's been funny hearing some of the wives talk. They're like, you guys like just throw out, just compliments and like you aren't afraid of that. You're like secure in that. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Like we should, if we see,
100%.
Brandon do something awesome, I'm absolutely gonna tell him that because
Yeah.
he needs to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I know he's probably not feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I think more of that in the male community is just so powerful because then it creates more momentum
Hmm.
and I think goes to your ultimate vision. So that's what I would say, more of this.
Cam, thank you so much. And for all the other invested dads out there, keep going and invest wisely. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.